One common use for the preprocessor is to define constants. Preprocessor constants are not actual constants, although they're commonly called constants and are used for that purpose. Strictly speaking, they're macros. They're commonly used as constants, but there are some important distinctions. So here I have a working copy of working.cpp from Chapter 3 of the exercise files. Preprocessor constants are typically defined like this. So I start with the pound sign, and that's the indication that this is a preprocessor directive. And the pound sign must be on the very first position in the line. If I indent it, it won't work. Many preprocessors won't even allow it like this. It won't even work if it's indented. So it always needs to be on the very first position. And that's followed by the word define and the symbol and what it expands to. Now, the word define can often be indented. That'll work with most modern preprocessors. There are still a few obscure ones that won't allow that. But typically it's done like this, pound define, and then the symbol and what it expands to. So when the preprocessor encounters this symbol, for example, if I come down here and I make a printf, when the preprocessor encounters this symbol, it actually replaces it with the literal value before the compiler ever gets to it. And so when I build and run, I see the value is 1. But this over here, this is not a variable. I can't get its address. It won't show up in the debugger. I can't use a pointer with it. It gets replaced with a literal number 1 before the compiler ever gets to it. Now, traditionally, preprocessor constants are defined using all capital letters. This is a very widely kept tradition. I strongly suggest that you use it too. Because these symbols have their own distinct properties, it's useful to make them easy to distinguish from your other symbols in your code. You'll also notice that there's no semicolon at the end of the preprocessor directive, and this is true of all preprocessor directives, because that's not actually the C++ or even the C language. That is the preprocessor language. We can use it for any type of text, actually. It doesn't even have to be hello string and give it a string. And if I come down here and I'll just give it another printf, the same thing happens. This symbol here gets replaced by the preprocessor with all of this text that's after the symbol in the define directive. So these are very different from constants, and a C++ constant looks like this. And when I use that symbol instead, that actually does show up in the symbol table. It will be seen by the debugger. I can get its address. I can use a pointer with it, and you can see that it works exactly the same. So under many circumstances, this is a much more preferable way to use a constant, and it's actually more common in C++ to do it this way than it is with the preprocessor macros, although you'll still see a lot of preprocessor macros in C++. So preprocessor macros are often used to define constants in C++. It's important to realize that they are not constants, rather they're simple text replacements. It's often better to use variables declared with the const keyword.